bit of background on biosimilars and how biological drugs are manufactured. Biologics are medicines that are generally made from living organisms, which can include animals or microorganisms such as yeast and bacteria. And a very easy way to describe it is that we're utilizing the microorganisms' ability to make DNA and RNA proteins and different proteins, and giving them the specific blueprint for it and allow those microorganisms to make them. And they are obviously high, this is a very high complex procedure to do, and it takes time and effort, and a lot of specificities go into this. Biosimilars are very similar to biologics. They're actually have to be clinically identical in the way they work, and they're made of the same nature, a natural process of the biological or originator, and they typically are compared with each other from the strength and dose and have the same potential side effects. So it should provide also the same treatment benefits as the original biologic. Another piece of information that I think employers need to know is the difference between biologics and small molecular drugs. And just to talk very briefly, these small molecular drugs are generally, as from the name, low molecular weight, versus the biological and biosimilars are high molecular weight. Usually, the small molecular drugs are made by organic or chemical synthesis, versus the biologicals and biosimilars are made from living cell and organisms. The small molecular drugs have fewer critical process steps versus the biological and biosimilars that have many critical processes and steps for synthesis and making of the drug. The small molecule drugs are well characterized, and the biological biosimilars are actually less easily characterized. And even from a structural standpoint, the small molecule drugs have really well-known structures, and the biologicals and biosimilar structures may or may not be completely defined or understood. And the small molecular drugs have homogeneous drug substance, versus the biological biosimilars have a heterogeneous mixture, which, as mentioned before, may include some variations from batch to batch. I also want to mention that because of how these medications are manufactured, there is typically a certain variant between batches of biologicals, because, as mentioned, these are made in living cells and living organisms, and it's really almost impossible to guarantee that each batch is going to be exact identical from the previous one, because we have only so much control over the process, and the microorganism that we're borrowing their synthetic abilities basically have the full control. And knowing the nature of these living organisms, there is a significant difference between, or not a significant, probably some sort of variations between one batch and the other. One of the things that within my interactions with employers and what audience need to know about biosimilars, that they are generally safe and effective as much as the original biologic or the originator. They are both rigorously evaluated by the FDA before approval. And before approving a biosimilar, the FDA expert must conclude that it is highly similar to the original biologic, and that it has no clinical meaningful differences from the original biologics. This means that you can expect that the same safety, effectiveness from the biosimilars over the course of treatment as you would expect from the originator. this is actually, these statements are published on the FDA website for anybody who wants to review them.